What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. 2019 is coming to an end, and you know what that means? The decade is coming to an end. And in today's video, I'm taking all of the comic book movies I've watched since 2010 and somehow finding my top 10 favorite films. Of course, I need your comments down below. What are your top 10 favorite comic book movies of the decade? Statistically, everyone's list is most likely not going to be the same, and I just want to point out, these are just my favorites, right? I'm not sitting here claiming, well, these are the ones that should have won an Oscar. These are the most well-produced and most well-made movies. No, these are the ones that stuck with me more than any other comic book movie. Not to say that there are movies on here that did not come very close to making this list, and we'll start with my number 10. There's already pretty hot competition on who's claiming that spot, but my goodness, guys, one of the more difficult things I've ever had to do because I love every movie in my top 10. Every single film is vying for the spot above it, and my top 3 is literally one of the hardest things I've ever had to do on this channel. But I think we got there. Guys, I'm cheating again. I did it in my last list on this channel. I'm doing it one more time. There is a tie for number 10, and frankly, I want to talk about both movies. I can't figure out which one is better. So at number 10, we're talking, first off, we'll start with Guardians of the Galaxy, which is one of my favorite movies in the MCU. I love this film. The fact that they pulled this off, still looking back at it, however many years later, is incredible, man. No one knew, outside of the hardcore bubbled comic book nerds like myself, no one knew what these characters were, who they were supposed to be in this universe, and the factor that they would be within the scope of what Infinity War and Endgame ended up being. But James Gunn came in and really pulled off an incredible film, a sci-fi, color-filled space romp with humor and great character development, an awesome cast, Chris Pratt, Bradley Cooper, Zoe Saldana. I could go on for days, and of course, Groot. We all love Groot. Dave Bautista, I don't ever see him, but I know he's there. Regardless, Guardians of the Galaxy, it deserves its place to be talked about on this list. But the movie that I just could not quite get away from as well is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This is comic book movie. Scott Pilgrim is not necessarily a superhero movie, but it is a comic book movie. Now, this is one it took me a bit to come around on, right? Guardians of the Galaxy, first time I watched it, I knew that was a movie that I was going to end up loving. Scott Pilgrim, I loved it the first time I watched it, but it would not have been inside my top 10 if I did not go back, rewatch it, pick up on the subtle hints and the Easter eggs of what that film did, and just appreciated the direction and the filmmaking from Edgar Wright, who is one of the best directors working right now. This cast is stellar. You knew Michael Cera was going to be a guy that I'd end up rooting for like I would a superhero, and this is still, I know it's not technically a video game movie, it's a comic book movie, but it's the best video game movie we've ever got. I mean, it's laid out like a video game, the entire thing. I mean, he has extra lives, and he's collecting coins, and he's fighting villains, bosses, levels. It's a cool movie, man. If you've never watched Scott Pilgrim, it's wacky, it's a little zany. That's one reason I had to go back and revisit it, because the first time I watched it, I'm like, what the heck am I watching? But now it's in my top 10 comic book movies of the decade, man. I just can't quite get away from it. Another movie I had a lot of difficulty putting this load down on my list is X-Men Days of Future Past. Guys, I don't know if you know this about me. I love this movie. It is my favorite X-Men team film, right? And I love a lot of movies in the X-Men universe. It's being looked down upon because of Dark Phoenix and the bad fan reception, the critic reception, but this is a good franchise. And I think the peak of this franchise, of the team movies, is X-Men Days of Future Past. This combines the best of both worlds, man, like Hannah Montana. It combines the old cast and the new cast and brings in some great new characters. Of course, Quicksilver is a highlight, but the epic moments of this movie is something I want to point out and highlight, and the score. The music enhances every single tense moment in that third act. Now, here's my issue with this movie, right? The time travel stuff makes enough sense, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? When you start thinking about it in the third act, it kind of falls apart, but I can look past those things, right? It's a comic book movie. They establish a sense of realism. They stick to that. There are some things I have questions about towards the end, like I said, but everything that happens in that third act is so epic and so intense, and the scale is so large, and I just love this movie. It's an emotional gut punch every single time I watch it. I watched it about a month back again for like the 9th time. And let me tell you, it just keeps getting better. Now, I say it just keeps getting better. The ultimate example of a movie that gets better on rewatch is Thor Ragnarok, right? I didn't even have Thor Ragnarok. I don't even think I had it in my top 10 of that year until I went back and watched it again and again and again and again. I think I watched the movie 8 to 10 times by now. Thor Ragnarok is one of my favorite movies in the MCU. I think this film has everything going for it. Now, a lot of people didn't like how quirky it got and how Korg, hey man, it's Korg, how Korg comes in and really lightens the tone. And Ragnarok, right? The apocalypse, epic. It's got to be crazy. And that's what I wanted going in. And the first time I came out, I'm like, yeah, it was funny and I enjoyed it and it's colorful. But it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. Sometimes you have to look past what you're anticipating and just accept the movie that whatever director gives to you. And the movie that Taika Waititi gave me is one that I slowly accepted. I slowly raised my score up, and now it's one of my favorite comic book movies in the decade. It's one of my favorite movies in the MCU. I love Thor Ragnarok. I think what it does for the character of Thor is better than what any movie in the MCU has done, taking a character from here to here. Right? And then they capitalize on that in Infinity War and Endgame, and Thor Ragnarok, man, it is just so much fun. Speak of the devil, it's Avengers Infinity War. Now, you're going to look at some of the movies I have above this, and you're going to be like, Austin, you have that movie above Infinity War? That's not me saying Infinity War is a bad movie. I think Infinity War is a great movie. Every movie on this list from now on, I think I've given like a 9.5 or higher, so we're talking about, like, if I have a group of children and they're all my own and I'm trying to choose between them, I don't know if I could do it. I would have to, because on YouTube you have to make a list. That's what I'm doing right now. It's like choosing my favorite child. I don't have kids, but like I always say, I have a dog, and I love him. I would choose him every single time. But Avengers Infinity War, back on track. That is a movie that really does bring everything together that we wanted to see in the MCU and brings us a brilliant villain story. Now, there's another villain movie we're going to talk about here in a bit, but Thanos is one of my favorite villains of all time, and Infinity War tells the story really through his perspective. It's his movie. It is absolutely his movie. He provides all of the intense and epic moments. Not all of them, right? There's some great Thor moments, Thor arriving to Earth, some great things within that final battle at the end. I mean, every character reveal, it's like Captain America, the crowd goes crazy. Black Panther, the crowd goes wild. Everything about this movie is epic. Infinity War is, it seems low on my list, but trust me, guys, this might, we're talking almost a 10-year span here. This is ridiculous how much you have to compact into a top 10 list. But once again, we're doing it. Next up, we're talking Captain America Civil War. Yeah, I have Civil War like a notch above Infinity War, and it hurts my soul to say that, but I can't get over the way that I felt watching this movie the first time. Like, it did everything I wanted to see because I'm obsessed with the comic book storyline. I'm not saying it's the greatest comic book storyline of all time, but I just like the fact that you have heroes going up against heroes and you have to decide. Well, that was the whole marketing strategy going in, is we got to pick a side. Are we on Team Cap or Team Iron Man? And then you start thinking about it, and it's like, well, maybe I wasn't on the team that I thought I was on in the first place. In this movie, it makes you think. I think the pacing is incredible. The Russo brothers direct this movie like crazy. I mean, they do every single film, so it's really not saying much, but this movie could have easily fallen flat. This is a tough thing to capture, to get you to care about the characters that you're also rooting against. And then that airport scene, and then the final battle, which is almost maybe even better than the airport scene. And of course, the introduction to two of the best characters in MCU history, Spider-Man, Black Panther. Civil War does every single thing right, in my opinion, even though some things about the villainous storyline and convenient elements of the story, but we're not here to talk negatives. Top 10 of the decade. Next up, yeah, we're doing it already. Joker comes in at number 5. Now, this is a film. And I have two movies on the, spoiler, I have two movies on this list that I feel this way about. These both still need time to marinate in my brain. They both mean the absolute world to me for different reasons, and they're both incredible movies. Joker is an Oscar-quality film, in my opinion. If we're talking what is my favorite, it's at number 5. If we're talking what is the best, most well-made movie, from a filmmaking standpoint, right? It may not have the epic superhero comic book moments, but from a filmmaking standpoint, I think this movie, and then I think another one that I think two more that we're going to talk about are the 3 highest quality films. The only reason it's at number 5 is because I find that epic comic book loving fun in these other films, but that's not to say Joker isn't just monumental for what comic book movies should be after this. We can say the same about Deadpool. We can say the same about Logan. Joker does it different, does it artistically, does it with beautiful color correction, gorgeous cinematography, and incredibly haunting score, one that should get nominated for an Oscar, and does it in a way that should capture everyone. Now, it didn't. It was divisive. I know a lot of people that don't even like Joker, people that walked out of the theater and said, well, that wasn't that good. I'm not one of those people. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of the decade. It is a monumentally fascinating experience, and it could move up this list. I'm not saying it's going to stick at number 5 because it is fresh, just came out this year, but right now it's at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now, this was at 3. Something passed it, and we'll talk about it here in a bit. That doesn't mean Winter Soldier stinks. Winter Soldier is freaking awesome. This is a spy espionage thriller from the Russo brothers, and I encourage you, if you do not like the MCU, you don't ever want to watch one of those movies, you've never watched anything, this is the movie to watch. This takes a character in Captain America and almost makes him Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible. It feels like a James Bond film. It feels like the spy movies of old. I mean, this is something that transcended comic book movies, even before some of the other films that we're going to talk about. Winter Soldier, I mean, it's not rated R, right? It's not most artistic and Oscar-quality comic book movie of all time, but it's entertaining. Every fight scene packs a literal punch. I love what they did with both villains. First, second, third act, all fantastic. I love this movie with everything in me. It is monumentally incredible. Another film that is incredible is Spider-Man Into the SpiderVerse. That is my number 3 movie, my comic book ranking. This is my favorite Spider-Man film. It is fantastic. I mean, everything about this movie works. Heck, I showed my dad and my brother this movie. Neither of them, yeah, they were looking forward to it, but not really, right? And they walked out going, are you kidding me? That movie has no right being that good. I disagree. I think this movie has every right to be this good because they put so much time and effort into the filmmaking. I don't know if you guys have seen the behind-the-scenes video of the difference between the frame rate of certain characters and the detail and just the way that it's presented to us like a comic book, and every storyline is perfect, and I love the voice cast, the music. It's so good. Spider-Verse is so good. Argument to be made for my number 2 and my number 1 spot. And I feel like these 3 movies, well, really these 4 movies, they're going to continue to fight with each other. They're going to continue to change places. But I had to come up with the top 10. My number 2 is Avengers Endgame. Number 2. Didn't put it at number 1. Part of the reason is because it's still fresh. It's still fresh in my brain. I need to see it some more because my number 1 movie I have watched so many times. My number 1 movie, well, we'll get into it. But right now, I want to talk about just how incredible of an experience Avengers Endgame is. Is it the most well-made movie of all time? No. No, it's not. But once again, these are my favorite films, right? I just love the fact that they were able to do this. They were able to capitalize on all of these storylines and all of these characters and give a lot of them brilliant endings, the way that they take out Iron Man and Captain America. Unexpected, but beautiful. And this is a beautiful movie. It's also an epic movie. The third act is one of the most epic things I've ever seen on the big screen. I cried. I cried multiple times because I'm invested in this universe, and I'm just such a massive comic book fan. Like, I love superheroes versus supervillains. I've always worked that way. It's always been something that's been established in my brain, and I love most of the MCU, not all of the MCU. Some of the movies are flat, but I love most of the MCU for what it brings to the fan base. Now, are there people online that are going to critique me and strike me down and shout, not like Avengers Endgame? Of course. It feels like that's the case every single year. Every year one of these superhero movies comes out, it's praised, it's got a high score on Rotten Tomatoes, makes a ton of money at the box office. Then 6 months later, all these people come out of the ashes and they just hate the movie. And I'm just like, where were you? I mean, maybe it's the hype of the film and they're afraid to share their opinion. Don't be afraid to share your opinion, but don't share it in a way that takes others down. Appreciate the fact that they love this movie, any movie, as much as they do. And it's kind of the same case for the Joker. I'm now seeing people who hated the Joker. I'm just like, guys, come on. I mean, if you hate it, that's fine, but don't be so negative about it. We can love Marvel. We can love DC. We can love the Fox Marvel as well. And that ties into my number 1, which is Logan. Logan is my #1 comic book movie of the decade. And here's why. It's another movie that got a bit of backlash, but here's why. Logan did something for a character that I really, really like, but not a character that I was obsessed with, right? And turned him into one that, well, I was obsessed with after this movie because it works in a way that an independent movie works. It's structured in this Oscar quality style. The cinematography, the shot selection, everything I look at when I review a movie, when I look at Logan, is almost perfect. And I've never been able to say that about a comic book movie before, well, at least in this decade, right? Logan does it all right. It really does. Now, some have issue with the fact that he's taking on his clone in the third act, and there's some predictable elements, and a couple of times when the CGI shows through and it's not the best, it really doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me because this movie is emotional, and it's a character study. Joker is a character study. In its own way, SpiderVerse is a character study. And Logan combines all of the things that I love about filmmaking, James Mangold's direction, who just did it again with Ford v. Ferrari, and it's a Wolverine movie. It's an X-Men movie. It's an Oscar movie, but it's an X-Men movie. And I'm sitting back going, what? Why? We don't deserve this. Because we're just going to complain about it 6 months down the road. We don't deserve this kind of comic book movie. We don't deserve any of these comic movies. This has been the best decade for comic book movies of all time, and it will be the best decade of all time. The 2020s are not going to outdo the 2010s. The movies that we had this decade were ridiculously powerful. I mean, obviously it started in the late 90s, and then in 2008 we got both Iron Man, which started the MCU, and The Dark Knight. But 2010 through 2019 brought us everything. I mean, the majority of the MCU, some great DC films that came very close to cracking my top 10. I didn't even talk about the first Avengers movie, which really started this entire team-up thing. And then you got a movie like Dredd or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World that isn't even in. I mean, there are just so many awesome things. We're spoiled as film fans, and I'm spoiled because I keep getting all of these great movies, and I'll say it, sometimes I complain a bit too much, and sometimes I'm too hard on these films, but that's part of what I do on this channel. I try to be a movie critic, so sometimes I'll over-criticize a film, but that doesn't take away from what we're getting on a yearly basis, and it will, hopefully not, but it may feel like a cash grab. I'm sure it does to some, but down the line it could start to feel like a cash grab for me. I hope I never feel that. There are some pretty horrible comic book movies that have come out this decade, but there are also some powerful ones, and that's what I want to know in the comments down below. What's your favorite comic book movie of the decade? What's your favorite superhero movie of the decade? Supervillain, how did these affect you? I want your comments. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. I will definitely do more. I'm working on maybe a decade animated list, a decade horror list. Of course, my best of the decade, my best of the year so far, top 10, all of the Netflix things. A lot of countdowns coming in December. I'll be working on them. Thank you guys once again for watching this video. So much fun, but I did it. It's done. It's over with. I'm going to go sleep. I'll see you soon.